Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime. This is one of the seminal albums in all of heavy metal. It's 35 years old today. It was released May the 3rd, 1988. So what is a concept album? A concept album is when there's a story or a theme running through the whole record. So every piece of music, whether instrumental or song, carries on the story and interlocks to tell the whole tale. Typically, concept albums were something beloved by progressive rock. Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, little classic Land Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and so on. Sometimes you get albums that are conceptual in theme that maybe don't have a story, but they've got certain thematic ideas that are explored in each track. And in a way, Queensryche's previous album, Rage for Order, was kind of had some conceptual ideas within it. Certain songs covered the same kind of subject, particularly cyberpunk and technology and things like that. But this has like a full story. So Queensryche, well, based on Upward Curve, they did their EP that got signed, that got re-released, they did The Warning. A little bit disappointing because of production, but they had great tour supports with bands like Dio and so on. They did Rage for Order, got the production right on that, amazing. That charted, quite a bit higher in the US. Probably sold about 350,000 copies there. Again, they toured more, and their reputation was on the climb. So, but it's still quite a bold thing to do this, as it were. They could have gone and done what they did on Empire, but they're pretty savvy, really. They obviously decided, to run with it. Let's just give you the story. The album begins, I'm reading off Wikipedia here. The album begins with Nicky in hospital. He's a protagonist. He's in a catatonic state. He only remembers snippets of his past. This is like from the first track. It's called I Remember Now. He remembers he used to be a heroin addict, a would-be political assassin under the kind of grip of someone called Dr. X. And he's in a relationship with a nun who's also working for Dr. X called Sister Mary. As his position grows within Dr. X's organisation, he sees Master's vision, speak the word is all of us, that's one of the lyrics. And through one of Dr. X's associates, corrupt priest named Father William, Nicky is offered the service of a teenage prostitute nun, Sister Mary. Through his friendship and growing affection towards Sister Mary, Nicky begins to question the nature of what he's doing, seeing that Dr. X has his known nefarious agenda, the mission. Dr. X takes notice and seeing potential threat in Mary to his cult of personality, orders Nicky to kill both her and the priest. Nicky thinks he kills Sister Mary, but in actual fact she commits suicide because she thinks Nicky's been killed. He can't cope with the loss, and he kind of loses his mind, and he gets arrested. He's got the gun on him, I think, that commits him, means they think he's done the crime. So he's put in a mental hospital at the end of the piece. Like I say, I've kind of gone through it there a bit haphazardly, but it's better to read it on, read into it on other material. What do I think of the story? I think the political buttons it was pushing are really good. There's some things I didn't like Dr. X. I mean, Dr. X is kind of like a cult sort of figure, but, there has been kind of cult-like figures who call themselves Doctor something, but that never totally worked for me. And having sort of an ex-heroin addict nun, I never really understood that totally. It could have been someone else. But it looks at like religious corruption. At the time the album was made, it was very common to have TV evangelists. And with the Father William character, it kind of taps into that, I think. It's also it's the start of the George Bush Senior, the Reagan board George Bush Senior era. So I'm guessing Reagan's just still in power. So at this point in American politics, they've basically had 8 years of Reaganomics, republicanism, and that's going to carry on in the Bush Senior era. Monetarist economics has taken over and trickle-down economics. It also, I think, quite successfully having him a heroin addict kind of ties in with the war on drugs as well, which is, from my point of view, is one of the great failures. Anyone who watches a program like The Wire will know it's one of the great failures of American criminal policy. So I think it kind of taps into that a bit. It also taps into kind of paranoia and conspiracy theories. Effectively, Nicky's a patsy. So in that respect, he's kind of mirroring like the Lee Harvey Oswald type of character in the JFK assassination plot. And yeah, that's kind of how it plays out to me. So basically, it was Jeff Tate's idea, and he didn't do it to the whole band. What he did was went to Chris DeGarmo first, and DeGarmo slowly kind of, got into it, and then Jeff Tate went around the other band members. So what's interesting with this song is very much Jeff Tate's baby. He co-writes pretty much every single track, bar one or two, I think, which I'll go through. The next album, Empire, was more Chris DeGarmo's baby. But what's interesting here is actually Michael Wilton co-writes 7 tracks, and Wilton's very present on this album and was present on tracks on Rage for Order and The Warning. After this, Wilton will kind of withdraw and get basically phased out pretty much by Promised Land and beyond, and then when Jeff Tate takes over the band after DeGarmo goes, he just won't write anything at all, and now he's the lead writer again. He's coming up with all the riffage, mainly because they've gotten rid of Jeff Tate and DeGarmo's not there anymore. So it's quite interesting that, and we'll look at like how Wilton's writing style is really effective on this actually. It's 59 minutes and 14 seconds long, so it's a long album for vinyl at the time, but it's a short concept album in respect. A lot of concept albums go on too long. Judas Priest, Nostradamus, I like it, but it goes on too long. Seem to Remember Dream Theater is that over 70 minutes, probably is. This is cool. It's got 15 tracks effectively. There's 10 proper vocal song tracks, a couple of instrumentals and little pieces that connect. And that's really good, really well done. It's recorded at Kajem Victory Studios in Gladwin, Pennsylvania. Not heard of that, but then it went to the studio in Morin Heights as well, which is in Quebec, Canada, where Rush did Moving Pictures. And obviously Peter Collins, who produced it, was also Rush's producer. So actually, even though Neil Kerner did an amazing job on Rage for Order, Peter Collins came and did this, and he would do the next album, and he would do the Here and Now Frontier. So Morin had a digital 24 track, and this album's recorded, mixed, mastered digitally. And that's one of the first things when you listen to it now. It's very hard sounding. I remember saying at the time, but it's quite shocking before I was listening to it. The snare's really abrasive. It's got a hard top end. But I guess that's what the band wanted. The guitar sounds really cool. I prefer the production on Rage for Order, if I'm honest. And Empire, they kind of used the same process, but they got a better sound, better guitar sound. But it works for the songs. It's got a famous Queensryche clean sound, which is a bit of a benchmark, and they use a Roland jazz chorus, I think, for that. I think on the Mervy's Gallion Krugers used isolation cabinets and just cranked them up for 10, and they're quite regularly blowing those up. I think they certainly use those on Empire. So Homes of I Remember Now, this is just a kind of sound effects spoken acted piece with Jeff Tate plays Nicky. I remember a friend of mine saying that he thought the nurse sounded like Jan Francis at the time she was in Just Good Friends, which is a British sitcom. Sweet dreams, you bastard. So it's pretty effective. It kind of sets the mood, and then it goes to Anarchy X. I think this was actually a piece of music they had that they sometimes played on a Rage for Order tour, and then they adapted it in a thing. So this is great. It's kind of getting the juices flowing. You've got like big kind of crowd chants. It's suggesting unrest, and then forces disorder coming together, rebellion. And then it breaks down in a revolution call, and then the intro's got this great clean guitar with the pedalling. And then Scott Rockenfield has some really cool offbeats. I think people forget how good Scott Rockenfield is actually. And Eddie Jackson, the rhythm section's so good. And then you've got Revolution Calling. This is my favourite track on the album. This is written by Jeff Tate and Michael Wilton. So just looking at it, Chris DeGarmo wrote Anarchy X, and I Remember Now was Chris DeGarmo, Jeff Tate and Michael Wilton kind of coming together. So quite interesting, again, Michael Wilton getting in on the writing here. Really good chorus on this. It's a really good opening track. Like I say, it's not my favourite on the album, but this is one of the things with concept albums. It's about the story, not about how great a track is sometimes. And this first few tracks on Revolution Calling is telling the first part of the story. So the next track's the first like gold standard track on the album. It's the title track, Operation Mindcrime. It's got a great intro on this. Basically the phone rings, he picks it up and you hear the riff, and then the riff and then Mindcrime. And then the phone rings again and the riff comes in properly. I'll tell you quickly, once I went to Munich for the Oktoberfest, I was rooming with the guy who does my thumbnails, Gary, I'm not on Facebook Foley, and we had our mate Rich, and he was in the next room, and it was about 1 or 2 in the morning, and probably 3 o'clock in the morning. We thought, we've got to do the gag. So we rang him and went, Mindcrime. Anyway, So this is 4 minutes 43. This is in F sharp. It makes a pretty cool use of a D5 with the A in the bottom of the chord. So it's pretty heavy. It's great. Eddie Jackson's bass really pumping. Cool solo. Jeff Tate does a great vocal in this. He does quite bluesy, sort of twisty phrasing, and that works really well for the song. And great kind of feedback at the end as well, underlining the mix that like comes up in volume. And then it's got a great whammy diving effects at the end. It's a brilliant track, one of the heaviest Queensryche tracks. The other thing you'll notice, so far, we've had 4 minutes 42, 4:43. The next tracks 3:42, 4:07, 5:45. That's side one. We'll come to those. But these tracks aren't long. A lot of progressive rock albums have really long tracks, and they're too long. And that Queensryche have always written pretty short, punchy songs, and occasionally they'll do a long track. So this has got one really long track in it, but the rest of the tracks, bar a couple, are just standard length. Next up, Speak. This isn't my favourite track on the album, but I like it, and again it's moving the story forward. It's about him connecting with Dr. X, and Speak, the word is all of us, so it's kind of assimilating him into the cult, I suppose. 3 minutes 42, again it's Michael Wilton, so Michael Wilton's actually co-written the up-tempo tracks on this. He co-writes the next one with Jeff Tate, is Spreading the Disease, and these tracks are both similar. Spreading Disease, the lyrics are really talking about the corruption that the protagonist sees in society. Selling skin, scanning the numbers are the same on the credit card. I've misquoted that, sorry. He also mentioned about Sister Mary's story, how she's been a stripper in live S&M shows, and then she, becomes a nun, but obviously she's under the control of Dr. X, and I'm guessing she plies Nikki with heroin. And then Chris DeGarmo steps up at the end of side one with The Mission, and this is like the sort of first masterpiece on the album. So what's interesting in the album, the tracks are really great, especially Operation Mindcrime, but it builds, like I say, it's not sort of laying all his cards on the table, it's kind of crescendoing up. And then The Mission finished the original side on the vinyl, so this is 5 minutes 45, is a little more epic. Got a great intro with bells. This is referencing the Father William character, the corruption, the evangelist thing, I guess. TV evangelism was quite, I think Ozzy Osbourne satirised that in the track Miracle Man as well in 1988 on the No Rest for the Wicked album. So yeah, it's a great track. It starts with a haunting sort of, like James Bond, what they call a moving fifth, but picked around an E minor chord. And yeah, then it's got its pumping riff in, really good, really cool bridge. The chorus is pretty epic. And lovely solo by DeGarmo. It's just like the whole album so far up to now. You've got great backing vocals, you've got great sound effects, but the band's not over-egged it, it's not excessive. They've shown like quite a lot of incredible amount of discipline. So side one's over. Side two opened with Sweet Sister Mary. So this is the album's kind of big epic production number. What I love about this track is the album itself is cinematic, but this is truly like a mini movie. It starts off, you've kind of got the sound, you've got the Dr. X character played by the British actor Anthony Valentine. Horror fans will be aware of Anthony Valentine in the episode Carpathian Eagle, which is an Hammer House of Horror TV show with Suzanne Danielle. He gets blattered at the end. Yeah, spoiler alert, they always do in Hammer House of Horror. And he was in Raffles as well, and various things. I think he played a German soldier in something, I can't remember, SS officer. But he plays Dr. X. Sister Mary on this is by, sorry, I need to check the name of the singer. I should know this, Pamela Moore, sorry. So I think she was a friend of the band, and she performs that. I actually saw her perform that on stage as well. And this is Chris DeGarmo and Jeff Tate, and you can kind of hear it really. In actual, The Mission and Sweet Sister Mary, they need DeGarmo's sort of vision. That's not to criticise Wilton, but Wilton's better at writing these sort of metal, punchy tracks that work for that kind of dynamic. When you get the kind of bigger spectrum, this is where DeGarmo, comes in his full. So this is great. It's got a great left riff in A Lydian. Like I say, you got the sound of the rain at the start. He tells him to kill Sister Mary and the priest. I love the lyrics. and there's a brilliant bit where, like, there's a bit of spoken word where the Sister Mary character comes, it's raining outside, come in, I've been waiting for you. I just love that. You know, it's like it in the little mini movie, you know, in your head. This makes great use. Michael Kamen, the great film composer, does the strings for this. He did Roads to Madness and so on The Warning. He does a brilliant job, and it's got proper choir on it as well, almost doing Goldsmith-esque, Jerry Goldsmith kind of Omen, Latin phrases, I guess. I don't know what the words mean, but it works really well. Then it breaks down kind of into a more jolly Lydian riff. It's quite interesting. It uses the Lydian mode to be sinister, and then it uses the Lydian mode to be a bit more upbeat, but then it's really dark, you know, the verses again. Yeah, it's a superb track. It's crafted really well, and the way it breaks back down. So it's got an amazing arc, this song. It doesn't feel like 10 minutes and 41 seconds. It's probably one of the shortest epic songs ever. And really as well, it kind of has, it's got different sections, but it kind of feels more like a whole, you know. It's huge. It's the centerpiece of the album, really, and it, you know, they're really clever that it opens, but it could have finished side one, but it opens side two. It kind of, it's like having an intermission, really. You get the end of side when you've got the intermission in the story in the film. Next up's A Needle Lice. Again, this is the best fast heavy track on the album. Again, I think it's pretty cool that it comes here. For me, it's superior to Speak and Spreading Disease. Again, it's Michael Wilton and Jeff Tate. Really good for him. It's an 8, and it's got a really cool staccato riff at the end that goes into an odd time signature. Really aggressive. Probably, again, aside from Operation Mindcrime, probably the heaviest track on the album. Then you've got a little acoustic instrumental. No, it's not an instrumental. It's Electric Requiem. This is Scott Rockenfield and Jeff Tate. So this is pretty cool. Just a 1 minute 22 piece. And this is something I think bands copied later on off this. Certainly Judas Priest on Nostradamus having little interlinking instrumental pieces. But Queensryche kind of did that first, really. Now you got Breaking the Silence. This is one of the best maybe the best sort of melodic kind of fist-pumping track. It's DeGarmo and Tate again. It's in F-sharp minor. It's got a great F-sharp minor 7 chord. Boo-doo-doo-doo on the verses. I think it's having minor 7, minor 11. This makes great use of what I call impact harmonies. So what Jeff Tate does, sometimes he will have a harmony and then have extra harmonies just on the last word, but what he takes it further on this, and he breaks into the similar, breaking the silence of the night. Can you hear me scream, man? So he puts on the split, the two syllables of screaming. Scream, he's got like probably 2 harmonies, and he splits into 3 or 4 on the Ming, as it were. And it's a superb technique, brilliant production, great idea. Next track, I Don't Believe in Love. You do hear this song a lot. One of the problems with this album is it gets played a lot. Will come to its legacy, but this track kind of gets pulled out as the single. And I think Queensryche can be accused a little bit of putting in a love story into the concept, and that's a way. Even though it's I Don't Believe in Love, even though it's a bit cynical. It's a way of getting that kind of lyric and that type of song into the concept, and then that can be taken out of the whole and done as a single, and it worked. Really cool chords in this D minor. I should say throughout, you know, DeGarmo and Wilton used great use of straight power fifths, minor 6s, major 6s, major thirds, minor thirds, and then using kind of higher parts, which is often done on the G and B string and high in. This riff's like that. It's on the G and B, the open D string. These great clean parts, you know, they've got a real classic approach, not classic approach, but they've got their own approach that's been copied by people. I've copied DeGarmo and Wilton's style of clean and those type of higher parts I'm talking about, almost like if the Edge played metal at times. Then you got Waiting for 2022, it's a little Chris DeGarmo instrumental, just slide guitar. Again, you hear the classic Queensryche clean sound on this with a Roland amp. Then it's Into My Empty Room. This is really cool. It's a really just a plaintive, exposed piece. It's Wilton and Tate. I'm guessing Michael Wilton's been messing around on his guitar and he's come up with those cool chords that have really wide intervals. And then he's taking it from there and it works really well. And then you got a heavy bit at the end with the echoing vocal, and then it goes back to the start. The intro Eyes of a Stranger brings us back to the start. And then this is the other track that's a really popular track on the album. I really like the lyric, the Eyes of a Stranger, Mirror Never Lies, Straight Jacket Memories, Sedative Highs, really cool. This is Chris DeGarmo and Jeff Tate again. I think it's fair to say that the kind of big tracks, side 2 from the Mission onwards, you know, you see DeGarmo's power as a writer coming through. And this is great at the end, you know, you've got all the kind of revolution effects and it kind of crescendos and then finishes with I Remember Now. And it's really good, you know. So, like, I love this album. I do think there's some things I don't like as much as other things, and I've talked about those. I've always preferred Race for Order, still do. I just like the techno metal of Race for Order. But I completely understand why this is such a seminal album. Prior to this, I mean, King Diamond did Abigail. But that's the only kind of metal concept album I can find. I don't know if it's Sabotage had done one before that or Fate's Warning. You'd have to quote me. And obviously, Rush had done conceptual sides of albums, but they hadn't had done a whole album as a concept album. So the Queensryche were taking the prog rock bands, but putting it into metal. But I think it's a prog rock of Pink Floyd to me. You know, Queensryche have little widdly bits, but they're not like Dream Theater and bands like that where they're kind of channeling Yes or ELP or those kind of bands. So that's the first port of call. But the second thing they did, it has great individual songs that can be removed from the concept and work as songs on their own and then put back in. Production's great, but it's totally committed as well. The same year, Iron Maiden did Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I've just looked that up, and they're really Maiden just kind of had kind of themes. It's not really a concept album. And I remember Bruce Dickinson saying, or later on, that he felt they dropped the ball. And I think that's an example of what happens in metal. You have like the people who've been the leader, and then the other guys come along and go, well, actually, we're going to do it this way. And Queensryche, when it started out, you could hear Maiden, Priest, and Dio, Sabbath influence in them. But, you know, they're the one that made the top metal album. Like I say, Priest did Nostradamus. I think a lot of people criticise that album. With good reason on some things. That shows total commitment. It totally follows the life of Nostradamus, and it copies the Reich by having little instrumental pieces. It doesn't have spoken words bits, but one of the problems for that album is the story lends itself to slow mid-tempos. It's about a guy, is he medieval times or I forget which century, maybe 16th century, find it out, but that doesn't lend itself to high tempo stuff. There's only the title track and the song of Persecution. With this album, you know, they got like different tempos and feels in the story they created lent itself to a good mix of tunes, and they kept it short. It's not 90 minutes, you know. Just looking on here, I mean, Mastodon, Leviathan, Open from Arms, Your Hearse, this little list. You know, Emperor, Prometheus, Disciple of Fire and Demise. I haven't heard these albums, but these are examples of other concept albums. But at the end of the day, this is the daddy of all metal concept albums. There's not, you know, others will come along, others were before, but this will always be the benchmark. I think later on they tried a sequel, Operation Mindcrime 2. I think what went wrong with that was first port of call is, you know, Chris DeGarmo wasn't there. Michael Wilton didn't write anything. We found that out now. It's just Jeff Tate and a guy called Jason Slater, Kelly Gray. I liked it at the time, the first few tracks, but I think I wanted to like it. But that album tails off so bad. After track 12, which is the kind of duel with Dr. X played by Dio, awesome. It just tails off a load of dirge. But I think the other problem was there just wasn't as an interesting story to tell. The production wasn't as good. And I think it was out of its time. If they'd released that with the right budget in the Trump era, it could have caught like what was happening more. But by the time it came out, it was coming to the end of the George Bush Jr. era, and then you're coming in, you know, you're going to come into the Barack Obama era. So, you know, the time this album, because basically you're coming along the end of the Reagan era, you could kind of just talk about that. But, you know, as it went on and it got more popular, you're in the George Bush Sr. era. Took a while to go platinum this, and went platinum in 1991, but I imagine it's sold, you know, certainly 2-3 million copies now, not as much as Empire. And it provided the platform for them to do Empire and not seem like it was selling out really, because Empire's a lot more commercial album, but it's like, well, we've done the sort of traditional metal album with The Warning, we've done the techno future metal album with Rage for Order, and we've done the progressive album. So that worked really well. Later on, you know, they did another concept album with American Soldier, which I actually liked some of that, but you know, the kind of, you know, done 3 concept albums now, but this is like I say, this will remain the pièce de resistance. I don't know if there's much more to say really. I've gone on for 25 minutes, but I think this album warrants it. You know, it remains their great achievement. It will remain one of the great achievements in metal. But I think what you've got here as well is the balance of the 3 principal writers, you know, Tate and DeGarmo, and then Wilton contributing quite a bit. And that worked really well. And then after that, that balance would be upended. Yeah, okay. Operation Mindcrime, 35 years old today. There we go. Hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you again. Cheers.